Chapter 11. The Four Winds Plateau was no stranger to destruction. A bone-white tableland overlooking Miletus and the sea, it had been the scene of countless battles through the ages. The archons of Trax met their end on this battlefield. The legions of the dead were destroyed, and the Titan pillars once cried out for mercy. Mythos, the divine artisan, was murdered here. So many people had bled and died on this very ground that the gods had consecrated it. They declared it to be a temenos, a sacred land set apart from the rest of the mortal realm. No one was allowed to ever build on it again, and only the Four Winds were allowed to call it their home. Even the guardians, the stone soldiers who watched over the inland route to the city, had been constructed just beyond the edge of the plateau. Daxos and his small contingent of Miletian soldiers left by Hintergate and spurred their horses toward the plateau. Theros was restless to its core. The seas churned and smoke leaked from the mountaintops. The air was choked with omens and with the fury of the gods. Daxos wished for a clear sky and silence like a blind man wished for sight. None of his companions could see the frenetic energy welling up from the land, or the rain of stars from the cracks in the Nyx, or the brewing battle between the gods. Daxos tried to brush away the curtain of noise to get a sense of Nylea, but her presence was nowhere he could grasp. She made him feel safe, even from afar, something that Heliod never did. Heliod relied on Daxos for any necessary compassion, not the other way around. As they ascended the road onto the plateau, the Miletus River churned below them. The water flowed backward from its normal course. It was as if it was being sucked back into the sea. Stellano spurred his horse and rode alongside Daxos. Daxos felt a twinge of guilt whenever he saw his friend, but he reminded himself that it was days like today that justified his actions. The world was at a tipping point, and Heliod needed men like Stellanos. "What is happening?" Stellanos asked. "Thesa is preparing a second wave to inundate the land," Daxos said. They had just crested the slope and ridden onto the Four Winds Plateau when the top of Mount Velus exploded into a massive fireball. Clouds of gray smoke rippled across the land, and ash billowed into the sky. Crackling threads of fire stretched across the horizon until the eastern sky became a massive inferno. "Oh, great Heliod, protect us," Stellanos said in terror at the sight. "That is not the work of Thesa." "No, Perforos is attacking Heliod," Daxos said. His men dismounted at the sight of the inferno. They readied themselves for battle, though how they intended to fight the forces of nature, Daxos wasn't sure. The men formed into a defensive formation as a second epic wave appeared over the ocean. "Where is Heliod?" Stellanos shouted, and all the men except Daxos fell to their knees and shouted for deliverance from their god. Daxos crouched down and placed his fingertips on the smooth rock of the plateau. He let the mortal realm fade away and focused on the intricacies of the god realm. His senses exploded inside his mind, and for an instant he perceived the totality of the pantheon. Heliod had become like a fog bank over the sky, to punish Thesa for attacking his champion. He drove the heat of the sun deep into her waves. The surface heated until all the fish died, and the larger creatures swam deeper to escape the sun god's wrath. As Thesa screamed in fury, her wave rose even higher. Heliod burned brighter, and all the dolphins in the mid-sea perished. The Tritons fled to the darkest of the deepest ocean, where the primordial monsters felt the waters warm and began to stir. Even the gods, who had not taken sides in this escalating conflict between Heliod and Perforos, felt the danger of the situation. Thesos' deluge threatened Seteza, so Chirometra retaliated with the fury of a mother lion protecting her cub. Keranos incited a vicious storm in support of his favorite sister Thesa, and lightning struck Meletis again and again. Erebos sensed that soon there would be many dead walking toward the underworld, and he sent his agents to witness carnage. Only Nylea was absent from this spectacle of destruction. The weight of his vision nearly crushed Daxos, and he fled back to the mortal realm. The gods had lost all reason. The mortal realm had become just a stepping stone in the quest for domination. What stood between them and the untimely end of civilization? Daxos struggled to his feet as the apocalyptic winds raged around him. He felt a surge of hope. Maybe today he would be set free. Just moments before the wave crashed against the coast and the firestorm reached Meletis, Elspeth and Nika climbed onto the plateau. As Elspeth stepped onto the sacred ground, her transformed blade flashed with divine light. Elspeth saw a small group of soldiers kneeling on the far side of the open expanse. The sky was a terrifying tapestry of roiling clouds, banks of ash and fire. She glimpsed Meletis in the distance as it was lashed by lightning and winds. Compared to the divine furor around it, the city looked like an ant about to be crushed from existence. "Come to Meletis. Come now." Why? Elspeth thought. So I could witness its destruction. There was no spell, no salvation she could offer this world. All was lost. She turned in a slow circle surrounded by the vista of destruction, and the spear blade slipped from her fingers and fell to the ground. In his temple, at the edge of the world, Krufix heard the divine blade fall from Elspeth's fingers. As it fell, it heralded the death of thousands of souls, and Krufix could not let that happen. He had cautioned Heliod and Perforos not to threaten mortal existence. Now, he must intervene. Krufix drew in his breath. Time seemed to slow, and the gods looked closely at utter destruction about to befall the mortal realm. In the space between the minutes passing, Krufix spoke to his brothers and sisters. "I warned you about such madness." His message filled the mind of each god, and it was like grains of sand falling in an hourglass, measured, inevitable, undeniable. "The world is too precious to destroy. I am enacting silence. I am threading you back into the fabric of Nyx." Only Nylea responded. She rattled her forest like an earthquake as she tried to capture the attention of the elder god. "No, Krufix," she warned. "The mortal realm is afflicted by a mortal enemy. He threatens the Pantheon itself. If you remove us from the world, he will have free reign." But Krufix did not heed her warning. The deluge, the inferno, and the searing wrath of Heliod were weapons of the gods who couldn't think on a small enough scale to comprehend the devastation. Krufix appreciated each and every life now threatened by their battle. Their pain and grief would be his burden for as long as time existed. As he had in ages past, Krufix carved the names of the gods upon his tree. As was his power, he forced the gods to convene in Nyx. They were removed from the mortals, no longer free to meddle in the affairs of humans. It was their punishment to seize their battle and contemplate the fundamentals of creation. Only Nylea spoke, and she screamed for him to stop. "No! The mortals will be lost without us. They will have to face the enemy alone." She paced along the edge of the sea like a trapped animal. But despite her warnings, each god name was mystically emblazoned on the tree at the edge of the world. The destructive forces evaporated from the mortal realm before their carnage was realized. Perforce's fire dwindled, Thesa's sea calmed, and the storms of Keranos ceased. The sun retreated to its high place in the sky. Under Crufix's bidding, Nylea unwillingly joined her brothers and sisters in Nyx. As the silence engulfed the world, the mortals felt their gods retreat, and their absence was profound. And from the heart of this ruined valley, Xenagos smiled. He stood up and stretched like a lion awake from its slumber and ready for a night of hunting. He made a gesture of mock deference to the Crufix, who had just made the way clear for him, King Stranger, to finally complete his scheme. On the Four Winds Plateau, the inferno dispersed, and the storms dissolved into clear skies. Daxos heard the call of seagulls and felt the tranquil breeze of a summer day. It was as if a metal clamp had been removed from his brain and iron plates lifted from his shoulders. He felt as if he could leap off the edge and fly like a bird above the grateful earth. He threw his arms out wide, gazed up at the heavens, and smiled with pure joy. Stellanos grabbed his arm. "What's happened?" "The gods have gone to Nyx," he told his friend. "I can't hear them in my head anymore." The air felt lighter somehow, as if the world wasn't quite so infused with magic. Stellanos and the other soldiers cheered and cried at the miraculous deliverance of their city. Two women approached them cautiously from the far side of the plateau. The soldiers stopped their celebration and watched as the two strangers, who appeared from nowhere, closed the distance between them. One was dressed in Acroan fashions, and the other in strangely nondescript traveling clothes, but both were bedraggled and muddy. Daxos greeted them with a wide smile. He stopped abruptly when he saw Heliod's divine spear blade, and the smile faded from his face. In response to his change of demeanor, the woman lifted her weapon defensively. The Meletian soldiers raised their sarisas in return and readied their attack. Daxos was dumbstruck by the sight of the woman who held Heliod's blade. Even without the weapon, he would have recognized her. He knew the color of her hair, the shape of her face, the ethereal otherness that was invisible to everyone else. This was the broken girl who had grown to be Heliod's champion. This was the stranger that Heliod had ordered him to kill if things went awry. Well, Heliod could smite him from his new lodgings in Nyx if such a thing were possible. Naxos would never hurt this woman. He opened his arms wide as if to embrace her. "I know you," he said. He touched the glass amulet hanging around his neck, and she seemed to remember him. "You led me up the mountain." Before the woman could answer, a great rumbling shook the ground beneath their feet. An ear-splitting roar blasted across the plateau. Polukranos had arrived.